Question 1. The performance metrics show that the Cisco TelePresence solution is meeting all technical quality of service targets for video and audio, but there are concerns regarding the handling of call data and user privacy. Considering the UK regulatory framework for data protection, which of the following approaches best ensures compliance and protects user data? Option A. Rely on the existing general terms of service that users have agreed to, assuming they are aware of how their video call data might be handled by the system. Option B. Store call metadata and recordings in a cloud service located outside the UK, assuming that most cloud providers offer sufficient data protection. Option C. Disable encryption for video calls to improve system performance and reduce latency, as the primary focus is on delivering a high-quality user experience. Option D. Implement end-to-end encryption for all video calls. Ensure all call data and recordings are stored within the UK or in countries with equivalent data protection standards, and obtain explicit consent from users for the processing and storage of their video call data. Correct answer is D. Implement end-to-end encryption for all video calls. Ensure all call data and recordings are stored within the UK or in countries with equivalent data protection standards, and obtain explicit consent from users for the processing and storage of their video call data. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the technical requirements of a video conferencing solution with the regulatory obligations concerning data privacy and security. The implementation of a Cisco TelePresence solution, especially in a business context, necessitates adherence to relevant data protection laws. The core challenge lies in ensuring that the chosen configuration and operational practices do not inadvertently expose sensitive information or violate user privacy rights, which can lead to significant legal repercussions and reputational damage. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes compliance with the specified regulatory framework, which in this context is assumed to be the UK's Data Protection Act 2018, DPA 2018, and the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, as it applies in the UK. Implementing end-to-end encryption for all video calls, ensuring data is stored only within the UK or in jurisdictions with equivalent data protection standards, and obtaining explicit consent for data processing are all fundamental requirements under these regulations. This proactive stance on security and privacy safeguards sensitive personal data, builds trust with users, and mitigates legal risks. An incorrect approach that fails to implement end-to-end encryption for all video calls is professionally unacceptable. This failure directly contravenes the principles of data security mandated by DPA 2018 and GDPR, which require appropriate technical and organizational measures to protect personal data. Without encryption, data transmitted during video calls is vulnerable to interception, leading to a data breach and potential violation of individuals' privacy rights. Another incorrect approach, which involves storing call metadata and recordings in a cloud service located outside the UK without assessing its data protection compliance, is also professionally unacceptable. DPA 2018 and GDPR impose strict rules on international data transfers. Transferring personal data to countries that do not offer an adequate level of protection requires specific safeguards, such as standard contractual clauses or binding corporate rules. Failing to conduct this assessment and implement appropriate safeguards is a direct regulatory failure. A third incorrect approach, which relies on the assumption that users are aware of data handling practices simply by agreeing to a general terms of service without specific notification about video call data, is professionally unacceptable. GDPR, in particular, emphasizes the need for clear, specific, and informed consent. Users must be explicitly informed about what data is collected, how it is processed, where it is stored, and for how long, especially concerning sensitive communication data. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough risk assessment that considers both technical capabilities and regulatory requirements. This includes identifying all personal data processed by the system, understanding the data flow, and mapping it against the obligations under applicable data protection laws. Professionals should consult with legal counsel specializing in data privacy to ensure all implementations and operational procedures are compliant. Prioritizing privacy by design and by default, and maintaining a continuous review of security and privacy measures are essential for responsible technology deployment. Question 2. Operational review demonstrates that a new Cisco TelePresence video solution is being deployed across multiple departments within an organization. The solution will be used for internal meetings, client consultations, and the transmission of sensitive project data. Considering the regulatory framework for the exam's jurisdiction, which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with data privacy and security requirements for this video solution? Option A. Transmit all sensitive project data in unencrypted form to simplify network traffic and improve performance, as long as internal network security measures are in place. Option B. Prioritize the deployment speed of the video solution over detailed security configurations, with the intention of addressing security concerns in a later phase. Option C. Rely solely on the default security settings provided by the Cisco TelePresence solution, assuming they are sufficient for all types of data transmitted. Option D. Implement end-to-end encryption for all video and audio streams. Establish strict access control policies based on the principle of least privilege, and ensure that data retention policies are clearly defined and enforced according to regulatory guidelines. The correct answer is D. Implement end-to-end encryption for all video and audio streams. Establish strict access control policies based on the principle of least privilege, and ensure that data retention policies are clearly defined and enforced according to regulatory guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the technical implementation of a video conferencing solution with the need to ensure compliance with data privacy regulations. The core of the challenge lies in understanding how sensitive information transmitted over the video solution is handled, stored, and protected, and how this aligns with the specific requirements of the exam's jurisdiction. Careful judgment is required to avoid potential legal repercussions and reputational damage. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it proactively addresses the regulatory requirements by implementing technical controls and operational procedures that align with the specified jurisdiction's data privacy laws. This demonstrates a commitment to responsible technology deployment and user data protection, which is a fundamental ethical and legal obligation. By ensuring that data is encrypted in transit and at rest, and that access controls are robust, the implementation adheres to principles of data minimization and security by design, as often mandated by regulatory frameworks. An incorrect approach that fails to implement end-to-end encryption for sensitive video communications would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This would directly violate data privacy principles that require protection of personal and confidential information from unauthorized access. Furthermore, a failure to establish clear data retention and deletion policies, or to obtain informed consent for data processing where required, would also constitute a breach of regulatory obligations. Such failures expose the organization to legal penalties, fines, and loss of trust from its users. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the applicable regulatory landscape for the specific jurisdiction. This includes identifying all relevant data privacy laws and guidelines. Before and during the implementation of any technology solution, a risk assessment should be conducted to identify potential data privacy vulnerabilities. Technical solutions should then be designed and configured to mitigate these risks, incorporating security features like encryption and access controls. Operational procedures, including user training and data handling policies, must be established and enforced. Regular audits and reviews should be performed to ensure ongoing compliance and to adapt to any changes in regulations or technology. Question 3. Market research demonstrates a growing demand for high-definition video conferencing solutions within the financial services sector, which operates under stringent data privacy and residency regulations. A company is considering implementing a Cisco TelePresence solution to enhance collaboration between its global offices. Which of the following implementation strategies best aligns with the need to maintain regulatory compliance and data security? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of all applicable data privacy and residency regulations for each jurisdiction where the solution will be deployed, and select a solution that demonstrably meets these requirements, consulting with legal and compliance teams throughout the process. Option B. Rely on the vendor's general assurances of compliance without independent verification, focusing primarily on ease of integration and user adoption. Option C. Prioritize the solution with the most advanced features and lowest initial cost, assuming that standard security protocols will suffice for data protection. Option D. Implement the solution immediately to capitalize on perceived collaboration benefits, with plans to address any potential regulatory issues retrospectively as they arise. The correct answer is C. Prioritize the solution with the most advanced features and lowest initial cost, assuming that standard security protocols will suffice for data protection. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in selecting the most appropriate Cisco TelePresence video solution implementation strategy based on evolving regulatory compliance and security best practices. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for enhanced collaboration with the long-term implications of data privacy and network integrity, particularly when dealing with sensitive information that may be subject to specific data residency requirements. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the chosen solution not only meets functional requirements, but also adheres strictly to the regulatory framework governing the implementation jurisdiction. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the specific regulatory landscape and its impact on data handling and network security. By engaging with legal and compliance teams, the implementation team ensures that the chosen solution aligns with all applicable laws and guidelines, such as those pertaining to data protection and privacy within the specified jurisdiction. This proactive engagement mitigates risks of non-compliance, potential fines, and reputational damage, demonstrating a commitment to responsible technology deployment. An incorrect approach that overlooks the regulatory framework and focuses solely on technical features or cost-effectiveness would be professionally unacceptable. Its failure to consider legal and compliance obligations constitutes a significant ethical and regulatory lapse. Specifically, implementing a solution without verifying its compliance with data residency laws could lead to the unauthorized transfer or storage of sensitive data outside the permitted jurisdiction, violating privacy regulations and potentially incurring severe penalties. Similarly, neglecting security protocols mandated by regulations could expose the organization to data breaches, compromising confidential information and eroding trust. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multidisciplinary approach. Before selecting any technology, a comprehensive risk assessment should be conducted, explicitly including regulatory compliance as a primary factor. This involves consulting with legal counsel, compliance officers, and relevant stakeholders to identify all applicable laws and guidelines. The selection criteria should then be weighted to reflect the importance of regulatory adherence alongside technical functionality and business objectives. Post-implementation, ongoing monitoring and auditing are crucial to ensure continued compliance as regulations evolve. Question 4. The efficiency study reveals that the current process for deploying new Cisco TelePresence endpoints across various company locations is taking longer than anticipated, impacting the availability of updated video conferencing solutions. To expedite this, a proposal is made to streamline the deployment by pre-configuring a standard image and pushing it to all endpoints simultaneously, bypassing the detailed, site-specific security and data privacy validation checks that are currently performed for each office. This approach aims to significantly reduce deployment time. Which of the following actions best addresses the situation while upholding regulatory compliance and professional best practices? Option A. Proceed with the proposed mass deployment using the pre-configured image, assuming that the vendor's default security settings are sufficient to meet all regulatory obligations for all locations. Option B. Deploy the pre-configured image to all endpoints, and then schedule a separate post-deployment audit to identify and rectify any potential compliance gaps, prioritizing immediate availability of the service. Option C. Implement a revised deployment plan that includes automated validation scripts to verify endpoint configurations against the regulatory framework's security and data privacy requirements for each branch office before activation, ensuring a balance between efficiency and compliance. Option D. Expedite the deployment by skipping the site-specific security and data privacy validation steps, focusing solely on the technical functionality of the endpoints to meet the efficiency targets. The correct answer is C. Implement A revised deployment plan that includes automated validation scripts to verify endpoint configurations against the regulatory framework's security and data privacy requirements for each branch office before activation, ensuring a balance between efficiency and compliance. Explanation: the efficiency study reveals a significant bottleneck in the deployment of new Cisco TelePresence endpoints across multiple branch offices. The challenge lies in ensuring that the configuration and deployment process adheres to the established security policies and data privacy regulations mandated by the relevant jurisdiction for this exam. This scenario is professionally challenging because a rushed or non-compliant deployment could lead to security vulnerabilities, data breaches, and significant legal repercussions, including fines and reputational damage. The IT team must balance the need for rapid deployment with the absolute necessity of maintaining compliance. The correct approach involves a phased rollout strategy, where each branch office's deployment is preceded by a thorough review and validation of the endpoint configurations against the specific security and privacy requirements. This includes verifying encryption protocols, access control lists, and data handling procedures as defined by the regulatory framework. This approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes risk mitigation and compliance. By systematically validating each deployment against the established standards, the team ensures that no endpoint is activated without meeting the necessary security and privacy benchmarks, thereby safeguarding sensitive data and adhering to legal obligations. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with a mass deployment without individual validation, assuming that the default configurations are sufficient. This fails to account for potential variations in network environments or specific data handling needs at each branch, creating a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It directly violates the principle of due diligence in data protection and security, potentially exposing the organization to breaches and noncompliance penalties. Another incorrect approach is to bypass the security validation steps to meet aggressive deployment timelines. This is a critical ethical and regulatory failure. It demonstrates a disregard for the established compliance framework, prioritizing speed over security and privacy. Such an action could lead to severe legal consequences and a breakdown of trust with stakeholders. Finally, an incorrect approach would be to rely solely on vendor-provided default security settings without independent verification against the specific regulatory requirements. While vendors aim for robust security, their defaults may not perfectly align with the nuanced legal obligations of the specific jurisdiction. This oversight constitutes a failure to exercise professional judgment and due diligence, leaving the organization vulnerable to noncompliance. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the applicable regulatory framework, a risk-based assessment of deployment activities, and the establishment of robust validation checkpoints. Professionals must advocate for sufficient time and resources to ensure compliance, even when faced with pressure for rapid deployment. Prioritizing adherence to legal and ethical standards is paramount. Question 5. Assessment of an IT administrator's actions when troubleshooting a recurring audio degradation issue in a company-wide video conferencing solution, where the company operates under strict data privacy regulations. The administrator suspects the issue might be related to network traffic patterns during peak usage times, but is concerned about accessing sensitive session data. Which of the following approaches best balances the need for effective troubleshooting with regulatory compliance? Option A. Utilize network monitoring tools that capture anonymized traffic flow data and session metadata, excluding any personally identifiable information or content, to identify potential network bottlenecks or anomalies. Option B. Access and review raw, unencrypted video conferencing session recordings from the affected users without their explicit consent to pinpoint the exact cause of the audio degradation. Option C. Advise users to avoid using the video conferencing solution during peak hours until the issue can be resolved, effectively halting troubleshooting efforts to avoid any potential data privacy concerns. Option D. Implement a policy to record all video conferencing sessions indefinitely for future analysis, even if not directly related to the current troubleshooting effort, to proactively identify potential issues. The correct answer is A. Utilize network monitoring tools that capture anonymized traffic flow data and session metadata, excluding any personally identifiable information or content, to identify potential network bottlenecks or anomalies. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to ensuring the security and privacy of sensitive video conferencing data within a regulated environment. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for efficient troubleshooting and performance monitoring with the strict requirements for data handling and access control mandated by relevant regulations. The IT administrator must make a judgment call that upholds compliance while still enabling effective technical support. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves utilizing anonymized or pseudonymized data for troubleshooting and performance analysis whenever possible. This aligns with the principles of data minimization and privacy by design, which are fundamental to many regulatory frameworks governing data protection. By de-identifying the data, the administrator can investigate potential issues without exposing personally identifiable information, PI, or sensitive content, thereby mitigating the risk of regulatory violations related to unauthorized access or disclosure. This method demonstrates best professional practice by prioritizing compliance and data security while still allowing for necessary technical oversight. Incorrect approach is analysis. Accessing and reviewing raw, unencrypted video conferencing session data without explicit consent or a documented, legally permissible reason constitutes a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This action directly violates data privacy regulations that mandate secure handling of sensitive information and restrict access to authorized personnel for legitimate purposes. It exposes the organization to risks of data breaches, unauthorized surveillance, and severe penalties for non-compliance. Another incorrect approach is to ignore potential performance issues due to a fear of violating regulations, leading to a degraded user experience and potential operational inefficiencies. While caution is necessary, a complete lack of monitoring or troubleshooting can itself lead to non-compliance if it results in a failure to maintain secure and reliable communication systems, as required by certain service-level agreements or industry standards. Finally, implementing broad, indiscriminate recording of all video conferences for general review purposes, without a clear, documented policy, user notification, and a defined retention schedule, is also a regulatory and ethical misstep. This can lead to overcollection of data, privacy violations, and potential misuse of recorded content, all of which are typically prohibited or heavily regulated. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a risk-based approach to data handling. This involves understanding the specific regulatory landscape applicable to their organization and the data being processed. When troubleshooting or monitoring, the decision-making process should prioritize methods that minimize exposure of sensitive information. This includes 1. Identifying the specific data required for the task. 2. Assessing the sensitivity of that data. 3. Determining if anonymization or pseudonymization is feasible. 4. Ensuring all data access is logged and auditable. 5. Consulting with legal and compliance teams when in doubt. 6. Adhering to established organizational policies and procedures for data handling and incident response. Question 6. Comparative studies suggest that the implementation of advanced video conferencing solutions can inadvertently create privacy challenges. When deploying a Cisco TelePresence solution that includes the capability to record meetings, what is the most robust and legally compliant method to ensure that all participants are aware of and consent to the recording, thereby adhering to data privacy principles? Option A. Record the meeting by default and only stop if a participant specifically requests it during the session. Option B. Assume consent if no participant explicitly objects to the recording after a brief verbal announcement is made at the start of the meeting. Option C. Inform participants about the possibility of recording only in the meeting invitation, without any real-time notification during the session. Option D. Implement a system that provides a clear, audible, and persistent notification to all participants immediately before any recording begins, requiring an affirmative action to proceed with the recording. Correct answer is D. Implement a system that provides a clear, audible, and persistent notification to all participants immediately before any recording begins, requiring an affirmative action to proceed with the recording. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing advanced video solutions, ensuring compliance with data privacy regulations while deploying technology that inherently captures sensitive information. The professional challenge lies in balancing the business need for effective communication and collaboration with the legal and ethical obligations to protect individual privacy. Missteps can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and erosion of trust among users and stakeholders. The complexity arises from the nuanced interpretation of data privacy laws, the technical capabilities of the video solution, and the varying consent models that can be employed. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a proactive and transparent strategy for obtaining explicit consent from all participants before initiating any recording or data capture. This aligns directly with the principles of data protection legislation, which typically mandates informed consent as a primary lawful basis for processing personal data. Specifically, it adheres to the spirit of regulations that require clear communication about what data is being collected, why it is being collected, how it will be used, and for how long it will be retained. Implementing a clear, audible, and persistent notification mechanism before recording begins ensures that individuals are fully aware of the data capture and have the opportunity to opt out or object, thereby respecting their right to privacy and control over their personal information. This method fosters trust and demonstrates a commitment to ethical data handling practices. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves relying on implied consent, such as assuming participants agree to recording simply by joining a call or by the absence of an explicit objection. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure because it bypasses the requirement for affirmative, informed consent. Many data protection frameworks explicitly reject implied consent for sensitive data processing like audio and video recordings. Another incorrect approach is to only inform participants after the recording has already begun. This is a failure to obtain prior consent, violating the principle of transparency and potentially breaching regulations that require consent to be given before data collection commences. Furthermore, it undermines user autonomy and trust. A third incorrect approach, which is to only record when explicitly requested by one party without informing others, also fails to meet consent requirements for all involved and could violate privacy laws that require all participants to be aware of and consent to recording. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach, prioritizing user privacy and regulatory compliance. This involves thoroughly understanding the data privacy implications of the video solution's features, particularly recording and data retention. Before deployment, a comprehensive privacy impact assessment should be conducted. During implementation, clear, user-friendly consent mechanisms should be integrated into the workflow. Training for users and administrators on privacy best practices and the proper use of the video solution is crucial. In situations involving potential data capture, the default should always be to seek explicit, informed consent from all parties involved, ensuring transparency and respecting individual rights. Question 7. The performance metrics show a consistent degradation in video quality for a critical executive telepresence meeting room. To diagnose the root cause, the system administrator needs to examine network traffic logs. Which of the following actions best aligns with regulatory compliance and professional best practices for handling sensitive video conferencing data? Option A. Temporarily disable encryption on the telepresence endpoints to get clearer, unencrypted traffic data for easier analysis. Option B. Share the raw network traffic logs with a senior engineer in another department who has experience with network troubleshooting without formal authorization. Option C. Directly access and analyze the raw network traffic logs for the executive meeting room, looking for packet loss or latency issues. Option D. Escalate the issue to the designated security team, providing them with the performance metrics and requesting their assistance in analyzing relevant network traffic logs according to established protocols. Correct answer is C. Directly access and analyze the raw network traffic logs for the executive meeting room, looking for packet loss or latency issues. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to ensuring the security and privacy of sensitive video conferencing data, a critical aspect of implementing Cisco TelePresence solutions. The challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient troubleshooting and performance monitoring with the imperative to comply with data protection regulations. Professionals must exercise careful judgment to avoid unauthorized access or disclosure of information that could violate privacy laws and erode trust. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes adherence to established security protocols and regulatory frameworks. By involving the designated security team and following documented procedures for accessing sensitive data, the engineer demonstrates a commitment to data privacy and compliance. This aligns with the principles of responsible data handling, ensuring that any investigation is conducted within legal and ethical boundaries, minimizing the risk of breaches and associated penalties. An incorrect approach that involves directly accessing and analyzing raw network traffic logs without proper authorization or a clear, documented need-to-know basis represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This action could constitute a breach of data privacy regulations, such as those governing the handling of personal information or confidential business communications. It bypasses established security controls and could lead to the inadvertent exposure of sensitive content, violating the trust placed in the IT department. Furthermore, it undermines the principle of least privilege, where access to information should be limited to what is strictly necessary for a given task. Another incorrect approach, such as sharing the raw logs with a colleague outside the immediate troubleshooting team without explicit consent or a defined need, also carries regulatory and ethical risks. This action could lead to unauthorized dissemination of sensitive information, potentially violating confidentiality agreements or data protection laws. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of data handling responsibilities and the potential consequences of information leakage. The professional reasoning process for such situations should involve a clear understanding of the organization's security policies and relevant data protection regulations. When faced with a performance issue, the first step should be to consult existing documentation and establish troubleshooting procedures. If these do not provide a clear path forward, or if the issue involves potentially sensitive data, the engineer should escalate the matter to the appropriate security or compliance personnel. This ensures that any investigation is conducted in a controlled, authorized, and compliant manner, safeguarding both the organization and its users. Question 8. To address the challenge of implementing a Cisco TelePresence video solution in a regulated environment, which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with data privacy and security mandates? Option A. Implement the solution with default settings, relying on the assumption that users will manage their own data security and privacy configurations. Option B. Select the most cost-effective and easily deployable Cisco TelePresence model, assuming that standard vendor security features are sufficient for regulatory compliance. Option C. Focus on features that enhance user experience and collaboration, with a secondary consideration for data security and privacy only if explicitly requested by the client. Option D. Prioritize a solution that offers robust end-to-end encryption for all communications and allows for granular control over data storage and retention, aligning with the principle of data minimization. Correct answer is D. Prioritize a solution that offers robust end-to-end encryption for all communications and allows for granular control over data storage and retention, aligning with the principle of data minimization. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in ensuring compliance with data privacy regulations when implementing a video conferencing solution. The core difficulty lies in balancing the technical requirements of the solution with the legal obligations to protect sensitive information. Organizations must proactively identify and mitigate risks associated with data transmission, storage, and access, especially when dealing with potentially confidential business discussions. Failure to do so can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Careful judgment is required to select solutions and configurations that not only meet functional needs, but also adhere strictly to the specified regulatory framework. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough assessment of the Cisco TelePresence solution's data handling capabilities against the specific requirements of the regulatory framework. This includes verifying that the chosen solution supports end-to-end encryption for all video and audio streams, ensuring that data is not stored unnecessarily, and that access controls are robust and auditable. Implementing a solution that adheres to the principle of least privilege for user access and data retention policies that align with regulatory mandates demonstrates a commitment to data protection. This proactive and comprehensive approach minimizes the risk of non-compliance and safeguards sensitive information, representing best professional practice. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a solution without verifying its encryption capabilities and data handling practices directly violates the regulatory framework's mandate for data protection. This approach risks exposing sensitive communications to unauthorized access, leading to breaches of confidentiality and potential legal repercussions. Deploying a solution that stores call recordings by default, without explicit user consent or a clear, legally compliant retention policy, also constitutes a regulatory failure. This can lead to the unauthorized retention of personal or confidential data, contravening privacy laws. Choosing a solution based solely on cost or ease of deployment, without a rigorous security and compliance review, demonstrates a disregard for regulatory obligations. This can result in the adoption of technologies that are inherently insecure or do not meet the necessary data protection standards, exposing the organization to significant risks. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with implementing such solutions must adopt a risk-based approach. This involves understanding the regulatory landscape, identifying potential data privacy risks associated with the technology, and selecting solutions and configurations that mitigate these risks. A critical step is to conduct due diligence on the vendor and the product's compliance features. Furthermore, establishing clear policies for data usage, retention, and access, and ensuring these are communicated and enforced, are essential components of responsible implementation. Continuous monitoring and periodic reviews of the solution's compliance posture are also vital to adapt to evolving threats and regulatory changes. Question 9. System analysis indicates that a multinational corporation is implementing a new Cisco TelePresence video solution across its European and North American offices. The solution will be used for sensitive internal meetings, client consultations, and potentially for recording certain training sessions. Given the varying data privacy regulations in these regions, what is the most critical consideration for the implementation team to ensure compliance and protect sensitive data? Option A. Ensuring the video conferencing solution supports the highest possible video resolution and frame rate to maximize user experience. Option B. Prioritizing the integration of the video conferencing solution with the company's social media platforms for broader reach and engagement. Option C. Implementing robust end-to-end encryption for all video and audio streams, establishing clear data retention policies aligned with regional privacy laws, and obtaining explicit user consent for any recording. Option D. Deploying the solution on the existing corporate network without any specific modifications, assuming standard network security is sufficient. The correct answer is A. Ensuring the video conferencing solution supports the highest possible video resolution and frame rate to maximize user experience. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to the implementation of a Cisco TelePresence video solution within a regulated environment. The core difficulty lies in balancing the technical requirements of deploying advanced video conferencing technology with the stringent data privacy and security regulations that govern the handling of sensitive information transmitted over these systems. Organizations must ensure that their video conferencing infrastructure not only meets performance expectations, but also complies with legal mandates regarding data protection, consent, and access control. Failure to do so can result in significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Careful judgment is required to select solutions and configurations that are both technically sound and legally compliant. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough assessment of the regulatory landscape, specifically focusing on data privacy laws relevant to the jurisdiction of operation. This includes understanding requirements for data encryption, secure storage of call metadata, user consent for recording, and access controls to sensitive video streams. Implementing a solution that incorporates end-to-end encryption for video and audio, robust authentication mechanisms, and clear data retention policies aligned with regulatory mandates demonstrates best professional practice. This approach prioritizes compliance by design, ensuring that the technology is deployed in a manner that inherently respects and protects user data, thereby mitigating legal and ethical risks. Incorrect approach is analysis. An approach that prioritizes only the technical performance and feature set of the video conferencing solution without considering regulatory compliance is professionally unacceptable. This could involve deploying a system with weak encryption protocols or inadequate access controls, thereby exposing sensitive conversations to unauthorized access. Such an approach would violate data protection regulations, leading to potential fines and legal action. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that standard network security measures are sufficient for video conferencing data. Video streams, especially those containing confidential business discussions or personal information, often fall under specific data privacy regulations that require more than just general network protection. Failing to implement specific security measures tailored to video conferencing data, such as secure signaling and media transport, constitutes a regulatory failure. Furthermore, implementing a solution without a clear policy on data retention and deletion, or without obtaining explicit user consent for recording and data processing where required by law, represents a significant ethical and regulatory lapse. This can lead to unauthorized data usage and breaches of privacy, directly contravening legal obligations. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with implementing video conferencing solutions must adopt a risk-based approach that integrates compliance from the outset. This involves 1. Identifying all applicable regulatory frameworks, e.g., GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA, depending on jurisdiction and data type. 2. Conducting a thorough data privacy impact assessment for the proposed video conferencing solution. 3. Selecting technologies and configurations that meet or exceed regulatory requirements for data security, privacy, and consent. 4. Developing and implementing clear policies and procedures for data handling, access, and retention. 5. Providing ongoing training to users and administrators on compliance best practices. This proactive and comprehensive approach ensures that technical solutions are deployed responsibly and ethically, safeguarding both the organization and its users. Question 10. The monitoring system demonstrates intermittent packet loss on the video conferencing network, impacting call quality. To diagnose the root cause, the IT team needs to analyze network traffic. Which of the following actions best balances the need for effective troubleshooting with the imperative to protect user privacy and comply with data protection regulations? Option A. Grant broad administrative access to the TelePresence management platform to all IT support staff to view live video feeds of ongoing calls for monitoring purposes. Option B. Collect and store raw, unencrypted video and audio logs from all TelePresence calls for an extended period for future analysis. Option C. Implement end-to-end encryption for all video and audio streams and ensure any collected diagnostic data is anonymized before analysis. Option D. Disable encryption on the TelePresence endpoints to allow for easier inspection of network traffic during troubleshooting. The correct answer is C. Implement end-to-end encryption for all video and audio streams and ensure any collected diagnostic data is anonymized before analysis. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to the implementation and ongoing management of a Cisco TelePresence video solution, specifically concerning the security and privacy of video conferencing data. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for effective troubleshooting and performance monitoring with the imperative to protect sensitive information transmitted during video calls. The regulatory framework for this exam, which is assumed to be US-based for the purpose of this question's compliance, would likely involve regulations such as HIPAA, if healthcare is involved, CIPA, or general data privacy principles under frameworks like the CCPA or FTC guidelines, all of which mandate the protection of user data and privacy. The professional must exercise careful judgment to ensure that any data collected for monitoring purposes is handled in a manner that is both compliant and ethically sound, avoiding unauthorized access or disclosure. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves implementing a robust security posture for the TelePresence infrastructure that includes end-to-end encryption for all video and audio streams. This directly addresses the privacy concerns by making the content of the calls unintelligible to anyone without the appropriate decryption keys. Furthermore, any diagnostic data collected for monitoring should be anonymized or pseudonymized to remove personally identifiable information before it is stored or analyzed. This aligns with best practices for data privacy and security, ensuring that the monitoring activities do not inadvertently compromise the confidentiality of the participants. This approach is professionally sound because it prioritizes the protection of sensitive communication data, a fundamental requirement under most data privacy regulations and ethical codes of conduct for IT professionals. It demonstrates a proactive commitment to security and privacy by design. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to disable encryption on the TelePresence endpoints to simplify network troubleshooting. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Disabling encryption would expose the content of video calls to potential interception and unauthorized viewing, violating privacy expectations and likely contravening data protection laws that require the confidentiality of communications. It also undermines the trust placed in the organization to secure its communication channels. Another incorrect approach would be to collect and store raw, unencrypted video and audio logs from all TelePresence calls for an extended period for future analysis. This is also a serious regulatory and ethical breach. Storing such sensitive data without adequate protection and a clear, justifiable purpose is a violation of data minimization principles and privacy regulations. It creates a substantial risk of data breach and unauthorized disclosure, leading to severe legal and reputational consequences. A third incorrect approach would be to grant broad administrative access to the TelePresence management platform to all IT support staff, allowing them to view live video feeds of ongoing calls for monitoring purposes without specific cause or authorization. This constitutes an invasion of privacy and a breach of confidentiality, unless explicitly permitted by policy and with clear consent or legal justification. Monitoring live video feeds of users is unethical and likely illegal, violating privacy rights and potentially specific regulations governing surveillance and data access. Professional reasoning. Professionals implementing and managing video conferencing solutions must adopt a security-first mindset. The decision-making process should always begin with understanding the data being handled and the applicable regulatory landscape. When troubleshooting or monitoring, the primary consideration should be how to achieve the objective without compromising data privacy and security. This involves leveraging built-in security features like encryption, employing anonymization techniques for diagnostic data, and adhering to strict access control policies. A framework for professional decision-making in such situations includes: 1. Identify the objective, e.g., troubleshoot a call quality issue. 2. Assess the data involved, e.g., video/audio streams metadata. 3. Consult relevant policies and regulations, e.g., data privacy laws, company security policies. 4. Evaluate potential solutions, prioritizing those that maintain confidentiality and integrity. 5. Implement the chosen solution with appropriate safeguards and documentation. 6. Regularly review and audit security measures. Question 11. Stakeholder feedback indicates a desire to rapidly integrate a new collaborative annotation feature into the existing Cisco TelePresence video solution to enhance real-time meeting engagement. However, concerns have been raised internally regarding potential implications for data privacy and the secure handling of annotations, which may contain sensitive information. Which of the following approaches best ensures regulatory compliance and professional responsibility during the implementation of this new feature? Option A. Conduct a thorough review of the annotation, features data handling processes, consult with legal counsel specializing in data privacy, and perform a comprehensive risk assessment to identify and mitigate any potential regulatory noncompliance before deployment. Option B. Implement the annotation feature with basic security measures and plan to address any potential regulatory issues that may arise after the feature has been in use for a period. Option C. Delay the deployment of the annotation feature indefinitely until a perfect, risk-free implementation can be guaranteed, even if it means significant delays to stakeholder objectives. Option D. Proceed with the immediate deployment of the annotation feature, relying on the vendor's standard security protocols and assuming compliance with all applicable data privacy regulations. Correct answer is D. Proceed with the immediate deployment of the annotation feature, relying on the vendor's standard security protocols and assuming compliance with all applicable data privacy regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid technology deployment and the need for robust regulatory compliance, particularly concerning data privacy and security within video conferencing solutions. The Cisco TelePresence solution, by its nature, handles sensitive communications, making adherence to relevant regulations paramount. The challenge lies in balancing the desire for immediate implementation of new features with the due diligence required to ensure these features do not inadvertently violate established legal frameworks. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a proactive and thorough assessment of regulatory implications before deployment. This aligns with the principles of responsible technology implementation and demonstrates a commitment to data protection and user privacy, which are often mandated by regulatory bodies. By engaging legal counsel and conducting a comprehensive risk assessment, the implementation team ensures that the solution is not only technically sound, but also legally compliant, thereby mitigating potential fines, reputational damage, and loss of user trust. This approach fosters a culture of compliance and ethical technology use. An incorrect approach that involves deploying the feature without prior regulatory review fails to uphold the duty of care owed to users and the organization. This could lead to violations of data privacy laws, such as those governing the collection, storage, and transmission of personal data, resulting in significant legal penalties and reputational harm. Another incorrect approach, which relies solely on the vendor's assurances without independent verification, is also professionally unsound. While vendors provide documentation, the responsibility for compliance ultimately rests with the implementing organization. This oversight can lead to unforeseen compliance gaps. A third incorrect approach, which delays deployment indefinitely due to minor potential concerns, can be detrimental to business operations and stakeholder satisfaction, indicating a lack of effective risk management and problem-solving skills. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with identifying potential regulatory touchpoints for any new technology or feature. This involves understanding the scope of data handled, the geographical locations of users, and the relevant legal jurisdictions. Subsequently, a risk assessment should be conducted, involving relevant stakeholders, including legal and compliance departments. This assessment should evaluate the potential impact of non-compliance and the likelihood of such an event. Based on this assessment, a mitigation strategy, which may include technical controls, policy updates, or seeking expert legal advice, should be developed and implemented before proceeding with deployment. Continuous monitoring and periodic reviews are also essential to maintain ongoing compliance. Question 12. Consider a scenario where a financial services firm is implementing a new Cisco TelePresence video solution for client consultations. The firm operates under strict financial regulation that mandate specific data handling and privacy protocols for all client communications. The implementation team is evaluating different deployment models for the TelePresence system. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with these financial regulations? Option A. Conducting a thorough internal risk assessment to identify all applicable financial regulations related to data privacy and communication security, and then selecting and configuring the TelePresence solution to meet these specific requirements, involving legal and compliance teams in the review process. Option B. Prioritizing the lowest cost deployment option for the TelePresence system, assuming that standard encryption protocols will inherently satisfy all regulatory requirements. Option C. Implementing the TelePresence solution on premises without any specific security hardening or data privacy configurations, as the internal network is considered secure. Option D. Deploying the TelePresence solution in a cloud-hosted environment managed by the vendor, relying solely on the vendor's stated compliance certifications for data security and privacy. Correct answer is D. Deploying the TelePresence solution in a cloud-hosted environment managed by the vendor, relying solely on the vendor's stated compliance certifications for data security and privacy. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between implementing advanced video conferencing technology and adhering to strict data privacy regulations. The need to ensure secure and compliant data handling for sensitive communications, especially in a regulated industry, requires a proactive and thorough approach to technology deployment. Careful judgment is paramount to avoid legal repercussions and maintain client trust. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive understanding and application of the relevant regulatory framework. By conducting a thorough risk assessment and ensuring the chosen solution meets all specified compliance requirements, the implementation team demonstrates due diligence. This proactive stance mitigates potential breaches of privacy and ensures that the technology is used ethically and legally, aligning with the principles of data protection and responsible technology adoption. An incorrect approach that fails to adequately assess the regulatory landscape before deployment is professionally unacceptable. This could lead to the implementation of a system that inadvertently violates data privacy laws, resulting in significant fines, reputational damage, and loss of client confidence. Specifically, failing to consult with legal and compliance teams before selecting and deploying a solution that handles sensitive data is a direct contravention of the principle of responsible data stewardship. Another incorrect approach, such as assuming that a vendor's general compliance claims are sufficient without independent verification, exposes the organization to significant risk. This oversight can lead to non-compliance if the vendor's claims do not fully align with the specific regulatory requirements applicable to the client's operations. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the applicable regulatory environment. This involves identifying all relevant laws and guidelines, consulting with legal and compliance experts, and integrating these requirements into the technology selection and implementation process from the outset. A phased approach, including thorough testing and validation against compliance benchmarks, is crucial. When faced with ambiguity, seeking clarification from regulatory bodies or legal counsel is a sign of professional integrity and risk management. Question 13. The investigation demonstrates that a multinational organization is rapidly deploying a Cisco TelePresence video solution across its European offices to enhance collaboration. The project timeline is aggressive, with a strong emphasis on immediate functionality. The technical team is focused on ensuring seamless video and audio quality and network connectivity. However, there is a lack of clear understanding regarding the specific data privacy regulations applicable to the recording and storage of video conferencing sessions involving employees and external partners across different EU member states. What is the most critical regulatory compliance step that must be undertaken before the full rollout of the video conferencing solution, considering the potential for recording sessions? Option A. Implement robust network security protocols and encryption for all video traffic to prevent unauthorized access to the recorded sessions. Option B. Prioritize the technical deployment and functionality of the video conferencing solution, addressing data privacy concerns only after the system is fully operational and in use. Option C. Rely on the default privacy settings provided by Cisco for the TelePresence solution, assuming they meet the necessary regulatory requirements for all EU member states. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment (DPIA) to identify and mitigate privacy risks associated with recording and processing personal data, and ensure explicit, informed consent mechanisms are in place for all participants before any recording occurs. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive data protection impact assessment (DPIA) to identify and mitigate privacy risks associated with recording and processing personal data, and ensure explicit, informed consent mechanisms are in place for all participants before any recording occurs. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to ensuring compliance with data privacy regulations when implementing a video conferencing solution. The core difficulty lies in balancing the technical requirements of the Cisco TelePresence solution with the legal obligations concerning the collection, processing, and storage of personal data, specifically video and audio recordings. The need for robust security measures and clear consent mechanisms is paramount, as failure to address these can lead to significant legal repercussions, reputational damage, and loss of trust. The rapid deployment timeline adds pressure, potentially leading to shortcuts that compromise compliance. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a proactive and comprehensive assessment of data privacy implications throughout the implementation lifecycle. This includes conducting a data protection impact assessment, DPIA, as mandated by regulations like the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, which is the primary regulatory framework governing data privacy in the context of this exam. A DPIA helps identify and mitigate risks associated with processing personal data. It ensures that privacy by design and privacy by default principles are embedded into the solution. Obtaining explicit, informed consent from all participants before recording any session is a fundamental requirement. Implementing appropriate technical and organizational security measures, such as encryption and access controls, is also crucial to protect the data. Regular audits and training for personnel involved in managing the system further reinforce compliance. This approach demonstrates a commitment to legal obligations and ethical data handling, fostering trust and minimizing risk. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the solution without a formal data privacy assessment or DPIA is a significant regulatory failure. It bypasses the critical step of identifying potential privacy risks and implementing necessary safeguards, directly contravening the spirit and letter of data protection laws. Relying solely on general security measures without specific consideration for video and audio data privacy is insufficient. This approach fails to address the unique sensitivities of personal data captured through video conferencing. Proceeding with deployment without obtaining explicit consent from all participants before recording is a direct violation of privacy rights and a clear breach of data protection regulations. This can lead to severe penalties and legal challenges. Assuming that the default settings of the Cisco TelePresence solution are compliant without verification is a dangerous oversight. While vendors strive for compliance, specific organizational needs and the context of data processing require tailored assessments. This assumption can lead to non-compliance if the defaults do not align with the organization's specific data processing activities and legal obligations. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with implementing such solutions must adopt a risk-based and compliance-first mindset. The decision-making process should prioritize understanding the relevant regulatory landscape, in this case, primarily GDPR for its comprehensive data protection framework. This involves consulting with legal and data protection officers early in the project. A structured approach, starting with a thorough risk assessment, DPIA, followed by the implementation of privacy-enhancing technologies and processes, and culminating in ongoing monitoring and training, is essential. When faced with time constraints, it is crucial to advocate for adequate time for compliance activities rather than compromising on legal and ethical standards. Professionals should always err on the side of caution, ensuring that all data processing activities are lawful, fair, and transparent. Question 14. Upon reviewing the proposed implementation plan for a new Cisco TelePresence video solution across multiple corporate sites, a key concern has been raised regarding the handling of sensitive client data that will be discussed during video conferences. The organization operates under a strict data privacy regulatory framework that mandates robust security measures and clear data handling protocols. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with these regulatory requirements? Option A. Rely solely on the network infrastructure's existing security measures to protect data transmitted via the TelePresence solution, without specifically verifying the video conferencing system's own compliance features. Option B. Deploy the Cisco TelePresence solution with default security settings and assume that the inherent security features of the Cisco platform are sufficient to meet all regulatory obligations. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of the Cisco TelePresence solution's encryption capabilities, access control mechanisms, and data retention policies to ensure they align with specific regulatory mandates before full deployment, making necessary configuration adjustments. Option D. Prioritize the rapid rollout of the TelePresence solution to maximize immediate business benefits, with a plan to address any potential compliance gaps in a subsequent phase after the system is operational. Correct answer is B. Deploy the Cisco TelePresence solution with default security settings and assume that the inherent security features of the Cisco platform are sufficient to meet all regulatory obligations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between implementing advanced video conferencing technology and adhering to stringent data privacy regulations. The need to ensure secure and compliant data handling, especially when dealing with sensitive information that might be transmitted or stored via the TelePresence solution, requires careful consideration of legal and ethical obligations. The complexity arises from the interconnectedness of technology deployment, network security, and the legal framework governing data protection. The correct approach involves a proactive and comprehensive assessment of the Cisco TelePresence solutions, compliance with relevant data privacy laws, such as the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. If the organization operates within or handles data from the European Union, or equivalent national legislation, if a different jurisdiction is specified for the exam. This includes verifying that the solution supports features like end-to-end encryption, access controls, audit trails, and data retention policies that align with regulatory requirements. Implementing the solution only after a thorough review, and if necessary, configuration adjustments to meet these standards, represents best professional practice. This demonstrates a commitment to legal compliance and ethical data stewardship, mitigating risks of data breaches, unauthorized access, and subsequent penalties. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize rapid deployment and functionality over regulatory compliance. For instance, proceeding with implementation without verifying the encryption capabilities of the TelePresence endpoints and infrastructure would be a significant regulatory failure. This could lead to the transmission of unencrypted sensitive data, violating data protection principles, and potentially exposing the organization to severe fines and reputational damage under regulations like GDPR. Another failure would be to overlook the need for clear data processing agreements with any third-party service providers involved in the TelePresence solution's operation or maintenance, which is a common requirement for data controllers and processors. Furthermore, neglecting to establish and communicate clear data retention and deletion policies for recorded video conferences would also constitute a breach of regulatory obligations, as data should not be kept longer than necessary for its intended purpose. Professionals should adopt a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves identifying potential regulatory touchpoints early in the project lifecycle, conducting thorough due diligence on the technology's compliance features, consulting with legal and compliance departments, and prioritizing security and privacy by design. When in doubt, seeking expert advice and performing pilot testing with a focus on compliance aspects are crucial steps. Question 15. Governance review demonstrates that the implemented Cisco TelePresence video solution may not fully align with the data protection obligations stipulated by UK regulatory frameworks, specifically concerning the handling of sensitive meeting content. Which of the following actions best addresses this compliance gap? Option A. Rely on the Cisco vendor's standard compliance documentation to confirm that the TelePresence solution meets general data protection standards, assuming this is sufficient for UK regulatory requirements. Option B. Prioritize upgrading the TelePresence system to the latest version for enhanced features and performance, with a plan to address data protection concerns in a subsequent review cycle. Option C. Conduct a detailed audit of the TelePresence system's data handling processes, including encryption, access controls, and data retention policies, to ensure alignment with the UK Data Protection Act 2018 and GDPR, and implement necessary technical and organizational adjustments. Option D. Discontinue the use of the TelePresence system for any meetings involving potentially sensitive information until a full technical overhaul can be completed, without a defined timeline. The correct answer is C. Conduct a detailed audit of the TelePresence system's data handling processes, including encryption, access controls, and data retention policies, to ensure alignment with the UK Data Protection Act 2018 and GDPR, and implement necessary technical and organizational adjustments. Explanation. Scenario analysis. Implementing a Cisco TelePresence video solution involves handling sensitive information, including potentially confidential business discussions and personal data. Ensuring compliance with data privacy regulations is paramount. The challenge lies in balancing the technical implementation of the video solution with the legal and ethical obligations to protect this data. A governance review highlighting potential noncompliance necessitates immediate and informed action to rectify the situation and prevent future breaches. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a deep understanding of both the technical capabilities of the video solution and the specific regulatory landscape governing data privacy in the relevant jurisdiction. Misinterpreting or ignoring these regulations can lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Correct approach analysis. The The correct approach involves a thorough review of the existing video solution's configuration and data handling practices against the specific requirements of the UK's Data Protection Act 2018, DPA 2018, and the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, which are directly applicable in the UK context. This includes assessing how data is collected, processed, stored, and transmitted by the TelePresence system. Best professional practice dictates implementing technical and organizational measures to ensure data minimization, purpose limitation, accuracy, storage limitation, integrity, and confidentiality. This would involve configuring encryption for data in transit and at rest, implementing access controls, establishing clear data retention policies, and ensuring that any third-party integrations comply with these regulations. The professional is ethically and legally bound to prioritize data protection and to proactively address any identified gaps in compliance. Incorrect approaches analysis, ignoring the governance review findings and continuing with the current implementation, represents a direct failure to comply with the DPA 2018 and GDPR. This is ethically irresponsible and legally precarious, exposing the organization to significant fines and legal action. It demonstrates a disregard for data privacy principles and a lack of professional diligence. Implementing a solution based solely on vendor recommendations without a specific assessment against UK/GDPR requirements is also a failure. While vendor solutions are designed to be compliant in general, their specific configuration and deployment within an organization's unique environment must be validated against local regulations. This approach risks overlooking specific data processing activities or data types that require heightened protection under UK/GDPR. Focusing only on the technical performance and user experience of the TelePresence system, while important, is insufficient if it comes at the expense of data privacy. The DPA 2018 and GDPR mandate that data protection is a fundamental consideration, not an afterthought. Prioritizing functionality over compliance is a regulatory and ethical failure, as it can lead to the unintentional processing of personal data in a non-compliant manner. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with implementing and managing video solutions must adopt a risk-based approach to regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Understanding the specific regulatory framework applicable to the organization's jurisdiction, in this case, UK DPA 2018 and GDPR. 2. Conducting a comprehensive assessment of how the technology interacts with personal data throughout its lifecycle. 3. Identifying potential compliance gaps and prioritizing remediation efforts based on risk. 4. Implementing appropriate technical and organizational controls to mitigate identified risks. 5. Regularly reviewing and updating compliance measures as regulations and technology evolve. 6. Fostering a culture of data privacy awareness within the organization. Question 16. Examination of the data shows that a multinational corporation is implementing a Cisco TelePresence video solution across its European and North American offices. The solution will be used for internal meetings, including discussions involving sensitive intellectual property and employee performance reviews. The company's legal and compliance departments have emphasized strict adherence to data privacy regulation. Which of the following implementation strategies best ensures compliance with relevant data privacy frameworks for this scenario? Option A. Utilizing standard network security protocols and assuming that all data transmitted is adequately protected without specific consideration for the sensitive nature of the content or varying international privacy laws. Option B. Prioritizing the rapid rollout of the video solution to maximize user adoption, with a plan to address data privacy concerns in a subsequent phase after initial deployment. Option C. Deploying the video solution with default security settings and relying on the inherent security features of the Cisco platform without specific configuration for regional privacy laws. Option D. Implementing end-to-end encryption for all video traffic and establishing clear data retention policies aligned with GDPR and CCPA requirements, including mechanisms for data subject access requests. Correct answer is D. Implementing end-to-end encryption for all video traffic and establishing clear data retention policies aligned with GDPR and CCPA requirements, including mechanisms for data subject access requests. Explanation. Scenario analysis. The scenario presents a common challenge in implementing video conferencing solutions. ensuring compliance with data privacy regulations when sensitive information might be transmitted. The professional challenge lies in balancing the technical requirements of a robust video solution with the legal obligations to protect user data. Misinterpreting or ignoring these regulations can lead to significant legal repercussions, financial penalties, and reputational damage. The need for careful judgment arises from the potential for data leakage, unauthorized access, and noncompliance with specific data handling protocols. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves proactively identifying and implementing technical and procedural controls that align with the specified regulatory framework. This includes understanding the data classification of information transmitted via the video solution, implementing appropriate encryption standards for data in transit and at rest, and establishing clear data retention and deletion policies. Adhering to the principles of data minimization and purpose limitation, as mandated by relevant privacy laws, is paramount. This approach represents best professional practice because it demonstrates a commitment to legal compliance and ethical data stewardship, safeguarding both the organization and its users. It directly addresses the requirements of the 500-006 exam by focusing on the secure and compliant implementation of Cisco TelePresence solutions. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to assume that standard network security measures are sufficient without a specific review against data privacy regulations. This fails to acknowledge that data privacy laws often have specific requirements beyond general network security, such as consent mechanisms, data subject rights, and breach notification procedures. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize feature deployment over compliance, delaying or neglecting the implementation of necessary privacy controls. This is a direct violation of regulatory mandates that require privacy by design and by default. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on vendor claims of compliance without independent verification, or tailoring the solution to the specific organizational context and data types. This overlooks the shared responsibility model in data protection and the need for the implementing organization to ensure its specific use case meets regulatory standards. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Identifying all applicable data privacy regulations relevant to the jurisdiction and the type of data being handled. 2. Conducting a thorough data flow analysis to understand what sensitive data traverses the video solution. 3. Implementing technical controls, e.g., encryption, access controls, and organizational policies, e.g., data retention, user training to mitigate identified risks. 4. Regularly reviewing and updating compliance measures as regulations evolve or the solution is modified. This systematic process ensures that the implementation not only meets technical objectives, but also adheres to legal and ethical obligations. Question 17. Performance analysis shows that a multinational organization is experiencing intermittent quality issues and potential data leakage concerns with its Cisco TelePresence video solution, which is used for sensitive internal discussions and client meetings. The organization operates under U.S. federal regulations that govern data privacy and security. The IT team is proposing to address the quality issues by increasing bandwidth and implementing a new CoS policy, while the security team is suggesting a comprehensive review of data encryption protocols and access logs. Which of the following approaches best addresses the dual concerns of performance and regulatory compliance? Option A. Conduct a joint review of both performance metrics and security protocols, ensuring that any proposed changes to network configuration or data handling are assessed for their impact on regulatory compliance and data privacy under U.S. federal law. Option B. Implement the proposed security enhancements, including stricter encryption and access controls, without addressing the reported performance issues, assuming that improved security will indirectly lead to better user adoption and perceived quality. Option C. Prioritize the implementation of the new CoS policy and increased bandwidth to resolve performance issues, and defer the security review until after the performance improvements are validated. Option D. Focus solely on enhancing network infrastructure and security measures, without explicitly consulting the organization's legal counsel regarding the interpretation and application of U.S. federal data privacy regulations to the video solution. The correct answer is C. Prioritize the implementation of the new CoS policy and increased bandwidth to resolve performance issues, and defer the security review until after the performance improvements are validated. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing advanced video solutions, ensuring compliance with evolving regulatory requirements for data privacy and security, particularly concerning the transmission and storage of sensitive information captured by video conferencing systems. The professional challenge lies in balancing the technical capabilities of the Cisco TelePresence solution with the legal obligations to protect user data, especially when dealing with cross-border communications or data that might be subject to specific industry regulations. Careful judgment is required to interpret and apply these regulations to the specific deployment context. The correct approach involves proactively identifying and implementing technical and procedural controls that align with the specified regulatory framework, which for this exam is assumed to be U.S. federal regulations pertaining to data privacy and security in telecommunications. This includes understanding the scope of data collected, implementing encryption for data in transit and at rest, establishing clear data retention policies, and ensuring mechanisms for user consent and access control are in place. This represents best professional practice because it demonstrates a commitment to legal compliance and ethical data handling, thereby mitigating risks of regulatory penalties, reputational damage, and loss of user trust. Adhering to regulations like those potentially influenced by HIPAA for healthcare-related video, or general data protection principles under frameworks like the FTC Act, ensures that the implementation is not only technically sound, but also legally defensible. An incorrect approach that involves deploying the system without a thorough assessment of data privacy implications and without implementing appropriate security measures would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could lead to violations of data privacy laws, resulting in substantial fines and legal action. Another incorrect approach, such as assuming that standard encryption is sufficient without considering specific regulatory mandates for key management or data segregation, also poses a risk. Furthermore, neglecting to establish clear data retention and deletion policies, or failing to obtain necessary user consent for data collection and processing, directly contravenes ethical principles and legal requirements for transparency and user autonomy. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-step approach. First, thoroughly understand the specific regulatory landscape applicable to the deployment environment and the type of data being handled. Second, conduct a comprehensive risk assessment, identifying potential privacy and security vulnerabilities. Third, design and implement technical solutions that incorporate robust security features and privacy by design principles. Fourth, establish clear operational policies and procedures for data management, user access, and incident response. Finally, ensure ongoing monitoring and periodic review to adapt to changes in regulations and technology. Question 18. Compliance review shows that a company is implementing a new Cisco TelePresence video solution to enhance remote collaboration. The solution will be used for internal meetings, client presentations, and potentially for sharing sensitive project documentation. The IT team is focused on rapid deployment to meet business demands. Which of the following approaches best ensures compliance with data privacy regulations during the implementation of this video solution? Option A. Focus solely on the technical features and benefits of the TelePresence solution, deferring any data privacy considerations until after the system is fully operational. Option B. Conduct a thorough data impact assessment to identify the types of data that will be transmitted and processed, and implement appropriate security and privacy controls based on this assessment before full deployment. Option C. Proceed with the deployment immediately to meet business needs, assuming that existing network security measures will adequately protect the data. Option D. Rely on the default security settings provided by Cisco for the TelePresence solution, as these are generally considered robust. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough data impact assessment to identify the types of data that will be transmitted and processed, and implement appropriate security and privacy controls based on this assessment before full deployment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between rapid deployment of new video conferencing technology and ensuring compliance with established data privacy regulations. The organization is eager to leverage the advanced features of the Cisco TelePresence solution for enhanced collaboration, but this must be balanced against the legal obligations to protect sensitive information. Careful judgment is required to identify solutions that meet both technical and regulatory demands. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough understanding of the data types being transmitted and processed by the Cisco TelePresence solution, and then aligns the implementation with specific data protection principles. This proactive stance ensures that the technology is deployed in a manner that is compliant with relevant regulations, such as those governing the handling of personal data and confidential business information. By conducting a data impact assessment and implementing appropriate security controls, the organization demonstrates a commitment to responsible technology adoption and risk mitigation, which is a cornerstone of ethical and professional conduct in IT implementation. An incorrect approach that involves deploying the solution without a clear understanding of the data being handled is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This oversight can lead to inadvertent breaches of data privacy laws, resulting in substantial fines, reputational damage, and loss of customer trust. Another incorrect approach, which focuses solely on technical functionality without considering data security implications, ignores the fundamental responsibility to protect sensitive information. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the legal and ethical obligations associated with data processing. A third incorrect approach, which assumes existing security measures are sufficient without specific validation for the new TelePresence solution, is also a failure. It relies on assumptions rather than evidence-based assessment, leaving the organization vulnerable to unforeseen security gaps and non-compliance. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive risk assessment, specifically tailored to the new technology and its intended use. This involves identifying potential data privacy risks, understanding the regulatory landscape, and evaluating the technical capabilities of the solution against these requirements. The next step is to develop and implement mitigation strategies, which may include configuring security settings, establishing data handling policies, and providing user training. Continuous monitoring and periodic review of the implementation are also crucial to ensure ongoing compliance and adapt to evolving threats and regulations. Question 19. Analysis of a proposed Cisco TelePresence video solution implementation for a financial services firm in the United Kingdom, considering the firm's obligation to comply with the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, and the UK's Data Protection Act 2018. The implementation team is evaluating different configuration options for data encryption, user authentication, and data retention policies. Which approach best ensures regulatory compliance and professional responsibility? Option A. Implement the solution using the latest Cisco TelePresence features and functionalities, with a secondary review of security settings to ensure they align with general best practices, without specific verification against GDPR and DPA 2018 articles. Option B. Conduct a detailed mapping of the proposed solution's features and configurations against specific articles and guidance within GDPR and the DPA 2018, focusing on data minimization, integrity, confidentiality, and accountability, and selecting options that demonstrably meet these requirements. Option C. Focus on selecting the most cost-effective hardware and software components for the Cisco TelePresence solution, with the understanding that compliance will be addressed through post-implementation security audits and potential software patches. Option D. Prioritize the selection of encryption algorithms and authentication methods that offer the highest theoretical performance gains and user convenience, assuming these will inherently meet GDPR and DPA 2018 standards. The correct answer is D. Prioritize the selection of encryption algorithms and authentication methods that offer the highest theoretical performance gains and user convenience, assuming these will inherently meet GDPR and DPA 2018 standards. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in ensuring the secure and compliant implementation of a video conferencing solution within a regulated environment. The core difficulty lies in balancing the technical requirements for optimal performance and user experience with the stringent data privacy and security mandates applicable to the specified jurisdiction. Misinterpreting or overlooking these regulations can lead to significant legal repercussions, reputational damage, and a breach of trust with stakeholders. The need for a robust, end-to-end security posture, encompassing both the physical infrastructure and the data transmitted, is paramount. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment of the proposed Cisco TelePresence solution against the relevant data protection and cybersecurity regulations of the specified jurisdiction. This includes verifying that the chosen encryption protocols meet or exceed the mandated standards for data in transit and at rest. Furthermore, it requires ensuring that the solution's access control mechanisms are granular enough to comply with the principle of least privilege, thereby minimizing unauthorized access. The implementation must also include a detailed audit trail and logging capability to facilitate compliance monitoring and incident response, aligning with the jurisdiction's requirements for accountability and transparency in data handling. This proactive, compliance-first methodology is best professional practice as it embeds regulatory adherence into the design and deployment phases, preventing costly remediation efforts and mitigating legal risks. Incorrect approaches analysis. Prioritizing only the latest features and performance metrics without a thorough regulatory review is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This approach neglects the fundamental obligation to protect sensitive information, potentially exposing the organization to penalties for non-compliance with data privacy laws. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the legal framework governing data handling. Implementing the solution using default security settings and assuming they are compliant is another critical failure. Default configurations are often designed for broad compatibility rather than specific regulatory adherence, and may not offer the necessary level of protection or meet the stringent requirements of the jurisdiction. This oversight can lead to vulnerabilities that are easily exploited, resulting in data breaches and subsequent legal liabilities. Focusing solely on the cost-effectiveness of the solution without a corresponding assessment of its security and compliance posture represents a failure to uphold professional responsibility. While cost is a factor, it should never supersede the imperative to protect data and comply with legal obligations. This approach prioritizes financial gain over legal and ethical duties, creating a substantial risk for the organization. Professional reasoning. Professionals tasked with implementing such solutions must adopt a risk-based, compliance-driven decision-making process. This involves 1. Identifying all applicable regulatory frameworks and legal obligations relevant to the jurisdiction and the type of data being handled. 2. Conducting a thorough risk assessment of the proposed solution, specifically evaluating its security features against regulatory requirements. 3. Engaging with legal and compliance teams early in the project lifecycle to ensure alignment. 4. Documenting all compliance-related decisions and justifications. 5. Implementing robust monitoring and auditing mechanisms post-deployment to ensure ongoing adherence. This systematic approach ensures that technical solutions are not only functional, but also legally sound and ethically responsible. Question 20. The control framework reveals that a US-based financial services firm is implementing a new Cisco TelePresence video solution to enhance client interactions. The firm handles highly sensitive client financial data and is subject to regulations like the SEC's Regulation SB and FINRA Rule 3010. The implementation team is considering several options for securing the video traffic and managing recorded sessions. Which of the following approaches best aligns with U.S. financial regulatory requirements and professional best practices for this scenario? Option A. Deploy the TelePresence solution with default security settings and rely on the firm's existing general IT security policies, which do not specifically address the unique data handling requirements of video conferencing for financial services. Option B. Utilize a cloud-based recording solution that offers basic encryption and store recordings in a geographically diverse location to minimize data loss, without specific focus on granular access controls or detailed audit trails beyond standard service provider logs. Option C. Implement end-to-end encryption for all video sessions and ensure that recorded sessions are stored on secure, on-premises servers with granular access controls and detailed audit logs that comply with SEC Rule 17A4 for record retention. Option D. Prioritize the lowest-cost telepresence solution that meets basic audio and video quality requirements, assuming that the inherent security features of the Cisco platform are sufficient without additional configuration or specific compliance considerations. Correct answer is C. Implement end-to-end encryption for all video sessions and ensure that recorded sessions are stored on secure, on-premises servers with granular access controls and detailed audit logs that comply with SEC Rule 17A4 for record retention. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in implementing advanced video conferencing solutions, ensuring secure and compliant data handling within a regulated industry. The professional challenge lies in balancing the technical requirements of a high-quality telepresence deployment with the stringent data privacy and security mandates applicable to financial services in the United States. Organizations must navigate the complexities of data residency, encryption standards, and audit trails to avoid significant regulatory penalties and reputational damage. The correct approach emphasizes a comprehensive risk assessment and the implementation of robust security controls that align with U.S. financial regulations, such as those enforced by the SEC and FINRA. This involves selecting solutions that support end-to-end encryption, granular access controls, and detailed logging for compliance and auditing purposes. Adhering to these standards ensures that sensitive client communications and proprietary information are protected, meeting the reasonable security expectations mandated by regulators. This proactive and compliant posture is best professional practice as it mitigates legal, financial, and operational risks. An incorrect approach that prioritizes cost savings over security and compliance would be professionally unacceptable. This failure to adequately address regulatory requirements, such as those under the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, GLBA, for financial institutions, could lead to data breaches, unauthorized access to sensitive information, and subsequent regulatory investigations and fines. Another incorrect approach, focusing solely on user experience without considering the security implications of data transmission and storage, would also be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This oversight could result in non-compliance with data protection laws, leading to severe penalties and loss of client trust. A third incorrect approach, neglecting to establish clear data retention and destruction policies in line with SEC Rule 17A4, would expose the firm to risks associated with improper record keeping and potential obstruction of regulatory inquiries. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of applicable U.S. financial regulations. This involves identifying specific requirements related to data security, privacy, and record-keeping for communication technologies. The next step is to evaluate potential telepresence solutions against these requirements, prioritizing those that offer robust security features and compliance certifications. Finally, a continuous monitoring and auditing process should be established to ensure ongoing adherence to both technical specifications and regulatory mandates.